Ukraine has declared a 30-day state of emergency. It is telling millions of its citizens who live in Russia to leave there. Ukraine is also calling up military reservists for up to a year of service. The call affects reservists as old as 60. This enlistment office in Kyiv had people lined up to register. Let's continue now with NBC foreign correspondent Cal Perry. He is in Lviv in northwestern Ukraine, and that is near the border with Poland. Cal, tell us what the mood is like on the ground there right now.
You know, it was a fascinating day, Joshua, for the reasons that you sort of laid out and previewed. You have a change of tone now from the Ukrainian government. We've heard mostly from Washington in the past few weeks about the danger and the crisis and the building up of the military. And it's been the Ukrainian president who's been trying to play it fairly low key. And it's understandable why. You don't want to have a run on the banks. You don't want to have people fleeing. And you're holding out hope the entire time that maybe this invasion won't happen. Today, a very different story. We have this emergency law that went into effect about 3 hours ago, which we could see eventually checkpoints, for example, in the capital, checking people's IDs, checking in trunks of cars, things that you typically see in war zones as that threat level is raised. We had an address from the Ukrainian president about an hour ago, and he gave it almost entirely in Russian, and he posted it on Telegram, which is a clear indication that he wanted to reach directly to the Russian people. And he said to the Russian people, we want peace in Ukraine. We don't want this war. There's not much that really divides us. It was a clear plea directly to the people of Russia to avoid a wide-scale invasion. So this change of tone, I think when you couple it with the cyber attacks, when you couple it with the shelling that we've seen in the East, certainly has raised the tension. I think a lot of people here in Ukraine are starting to believe what Washington has been saying, Joshua.
Cal, what's the strategy there in terms of the president of Ukraine speaking directly to the Russian people in Russian? This is all obviously in Vladimir Putin's hands. Is he hoping to delegitimize Putin if he goes forward with this invasion? Like, what's the strategy there?
You know, the address, it really was a rebuttal to what Russian state TV is putting out. So at one point, the Ukrainian president said, we are not Nazis. Right, that's something that state television has been saying about Ukrainians and has been playing up the danger. State television in Russia has been saying to the Russian people, you know, Ukraine is a danger as an offensive strategy, that they could basically attack us. The president's saying that's not true. The things that you're hearing are not true. And again, putting it on Telegram, not doing a broadcast on television, clearly trying to reach the Russian people, but a very clear rebuttal to that propaganda that state TV has been putting out, Joshua.
We saw that video of Ukrainians enlisting in Kyiv. Talk about what's going on there in terms of preparing for the possibility, possibly the likelihood, that diplomacy might fail.
Yeah, and where I am, as you sort of laid out, I'm closer to Poland than I am even to the capital in Kiev. And so what you have where I am is really two things happening. You have a bolstering of nationalistic support, right, for anyone who is going to fight, at least, you know, in the start, what would be that sort of Eastern Front. So supply drives, the local papers covering that. The second thing happening in this city is this is a fallback plan for everybody, including foreign diplomats who would normally be in Kyiv. So the foreign missions have moved here as well. The thinking when you look at the map and you know where these NATO troops are, just, you know, 90 kilometers away in Poland. The thinking as you look at the big map is if Putin does some kind of invasion, it probably won't happen this far west. And so people are already kind of pre-positioning themselves out of fear. And that fear, I think, is really only growing, especially when, again, you know, Washington laid out this is how it could go, A, B, and C. And now we're seeing A, B, and C. And we're hearing sort of the continuation of this story that we've already been told by Washington.
Yeah, just to kind of clarify a little bit more of what Cal is referring to, just for the geography of all of this, we should note that Russian forces are along the northern and eastern, they can approach from three sides of Ukraine right now. Poland shares an east-west border with Ukraine, so the west would be Poland, and that's why a number of people have moved toward Lviv, which is where Cal is right now. As you can see there on the map, you see Russian forces north at Belarus, along the eastern border, and then further south, that little brown piece at the bottom is Crimea, so that's where Russian forces are. To the west is Poland, and that's closer to where Cal is. With regards to the state of emergency, with regard to all the enlistments, we've spoken to other folks on the ground, Cal, who say life is also kind of going on. It's not like Kyiv has just shut down and gone into complete war preparations mode. How much are people able to, like, balance daily life alongside the threat from Russia?
Well, and that's sort of the amazing thing in any conflict is that the majority of the people who live in these countries are trying to get on with their lives. They're not trying to be caught up in some geopolitical game. They're just trying to put their kids through school and feed their families and get on with life. It's all the more difficult, of course, when you have cyber attacks hitting banks. I mean, that's the kind of thing that can really destabilize a country without an invasion. If people can't get their money out, I mean, it's frightening. And that's what's been happening here. So you do have this dichotomy where people are trying to get on with their lives, and then at the same time they can't. And when you look at that map, I mean, it is very instructive. You look at how far away I am, closer to Poland than to the capital. It is a different story here. I mean, there is no question that people, I think, feel that war is far away. And when we talk about these reservists, we need to remind our viewers, this is a war that has been going on for 7-8 years here. So for the people who live in the western part of this country, you know, most of them speak Polish. We're close to the border. That war is geographically and it feels just farther away.
I should also note, by the way, we just got a note from the French Foreign Ministry. Not surprising that France is calling for all French nationals to leave Ukraine and to stay as far away from the border areas in the north and east of Ukraine as possible. We showed you on the map that is where a number of Russian troops are amassing. Before I have to let you go, Cal, what is the read from Ukraine, as far as you can tell, of how they feel about what Western nations are doing? The sanctions that have been imposed, the threat of more sanctions, the decertification of Nord Stream 2 by Germany. Its Chancellor Olaf Scholz mentioned that a few days ago. How's that playing on the ground in Ukraine?
I think people will take whatever they can to stop an invasion. I mean, whatever it takes, if you're Ukrainian, is an acceptable answer on sanctions. I mean, the Nord Stream 2 deal is huge. It's huge. I mean, energy prices are going to go up across Europe. So there is a sacrifice that is being made by some of these governments. A lot of these governments are in a tough spot. Germany certainly is in a difficult position. But for the people here, I mean, 150,000 troops amassed along the border. And the talk, again, is starting to align. You know, what Washington has said is starting to come true. And one of the themes is it doesn't take 150,000 troops to secure an area that is already a separatist-controlled area. The fear is definitely ratcheting up. So any sanctions that can be brought on, and I think there was an understanding here, too, by the way, that it was that first round of sanctions, not the full sanctions in a hope that Vladimir Putin would stop the troops where they are. Certainly that's the hope in places like Kyiv and places like where I am, Joshua.
Thank you, Cal. Much appreciated. That's NBC foreign correspondent Cal Perry reporting for us tonight from Lviv, near the border with Poland.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.